Have you ever wondered what would happen if the smartest military commander in an alien empire begged her leaders not to attack humanity? But they laughed at her warning? Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with another sci-fi fan. You won't want to miss what happens next. General Sareveth had spent more than 40 years serving the mighty Sten Empire. She had fought in countless battles, defeated powerful enemies, and earned the respect of every soldier who had ever served beside her. Her record was nearly perfect. But now, for the first time in her career, she was terrified. Not because of an enemy fleet, not because of a dangerous weapon. She was afraid of her own government. For nearly 2 years, she had sent report after report to the highest military council. Every report carried the same warning: do not attack humanity. Each new report was more urgent than the last. She carefully explained everything she had learned while fighting beside human soldiers years earlier. She described their unusual way of thinking, their ability to survive impossible situations, and their habit of preparing for wars long before anyone realized one was coming. 41 reports, 41 warnings. Every single one was officially received. Every single one was ignored. Finally, Sareveth decided that writing another report would change nothing. She requested permission to speak directly before the Grand War Council. The massive chamber was filled with the most powerful commanders in the Empire. They looked down at her from high platforms, surrounded by symbols of military victory collected over centuries. Supreme Warlord Kareth Vor sat at the highest seat. He believed the Sten Empire could defeat anyone. When Sareveth stepped into the center of the room, she remained calm. I am requesting one final time that the invasion of the Terran Accord be delayed. The room became silent. She continued, I have fought beside humans. I have studied them for years. Everything I know is contained inside 41 reports. Please read them completely before making a decision that cannot be reversed. The Supreme Warlord looked at her without emotion. We have reviewed your reports. Our conclusion is different. Sareveth took a slow breath. Your conclusion is based on fleet size, territory, and military technology. Yes, but humanity cannot be measured by numbers alone. Several commanders exchanged amused looks. One of them smiled. Another quietly shook his head. To them, humanity looked weak. The Terran Accord controlled far fewer worlds. Their navy was much smaller. Their economy was weaker. On paper, the war looked simple. Sareveth knew paper never survived contact with reality. She remembered a battle 14 years earlier. A small mining station had come under attack by the Grath Collective. Only 900 human soldiers defended the station. Enemy calculations predicted they would fall within 8 hours. Instead, they held the line for 72 hours. Not because they had stronger weapons. Not because they had better defenses. They simply refused to lose. Sareveth had watched injured human soldiers drag themselves back into battle. She watched engineers repair weapons while explosions shook the walls around them. She watched medics refuse to abandon wounded civilians even while enemy forces closed in. When the battle finally ended, only 212 humans were still alive. Every civilian had escaped safely. Later, she asked the human commander a question. How did you know your position could survive for 72 hours? The human colonel looked surprised. We didn't. She frowned. Then why stay? He smiled. Because people needed 72 hours. So we gave them 72 hours. That answer stayed with Sareveth for 14 years. Humans didn't always fight because victory was possible. Sometimes, they fought because giving up simply wasn't an option. Back inside the council chamber, Sareveth shared this memory. When she finished, silence filled the room. Then Supreme Warlord Vor answered. You are describing one exceptional battle, not an entire civilization. Our military is 3 times larger. Our technology is superior. Our victory is mathematically certain. Sareveth slowly looked around the room. Every commander believed the same thing. They trusted numbers. She trusted experience. The numbers are not the important part, she said quietly.
Vor leaned forward.
The numbers are always the important part. Without another discussion, he made his decision. The invasion will proceed as scheduled. You are reassigned to an advisory position. The meeting was over. Saraveth remained standing for several seconds. 41 reports. Years of research. Direct battlefield experience. None of it mattered. She left the chamber knowing history had just taken a terrible turn. 3 weeks later, the invasion began. Thousands of Sten warships crossed into Terran space. Their first target was a peaceful colony world called Crestfall. Military analysts predicted light resistance. They expected orbital defenses, ground forces, emergency fleets. Instead, nothing.
No warships. No defensive satellites.
No communications. The cities remained fully powered. Streetlights glowed normally. Factories still operated. Buildings stood untouched. But something was terribly wrong. The planet contained over 2 million people. Every life sign scanner reported exactly the same result. 0. The captain ordered another scan. Again. Nothing. Then one sensor officer noticed something strange. Deep beneath the surface. Thousands of artificial structures. Hidden. Underground. Connected across the entire planet. No one understood what they were looking at. The landing teams moved in. Everything appeared abandoned. Homes still contained furniture. Meals remained on tables. Children's toys lay untouched inside empty rooms. It looked as though the entire population had simply stood up and disappeared. One scouting unit entered the Eastern District. A single soldier stepped onto what looked like an ordinary piece of pavement. A soft click echoed beneath his feet. 3 kilometers below the city, something woke up. Across the entire planet, hundreds of hidden systems activated at exactly the same second. Suddenly the streets exploded with defensive fire. Buildings opened to reveal concealed weapon platforms. Power stations transformed into massive electromagnetic pulse generators. Communication towers became military jamming stations. Underground missile batteries emerged from reinforced foundations. The entire city had secretly become one enormous weapon. Even worse, the humans had planned for occupation. Every water facility destroyed itself. Fuel depots exploded automatically. Power stations overloaded beyond repair. Supply warehouses collapsed into underground bunkers. Road systems became demolition traps. Nothing valuable remained. The Stan Empire captured Crestfall after 3 exhausting days. But what exactly had they won? An empty world.
No civilians.
No resources.
No factories.
No strategic value. Only ruins. Military planners dismissed it as unusual. Surely the next colony would be different. It wasn't. Neither was the one after that. Every frontier world had already been evacuated. Perfectly. Not a single civilian remained. Entire cities stood empty. Hospitals abandoned. Schools silent. Markets frozen in time. Someone had prepared every colony months before the invasion. Saraveth stared at the incoming reports. Then a horrifying realization struck her. The humans had known. Not guessed. Known. They had started evacuating 14 months earlier. Which meant someone had read her classified reports. She closed her eyes. The Stan military believed its communication systems were impossible to penetrate. Apparently, human intelligence disagreed. Her warnings had reached humanity, just not her own leaders. For the first time in her life, Saraveth understood the cruelest irony imaginable. She had succeeded in saving millions of lives, just not the lives of the people she was trying to protect. The reports arriving from the front became impossible to ignore. Every captured world looked exactly the same. Empty cities. Destroyed infrastructure.
No prisoners. No civilians.
No resources. The Stan Empire had launched the largest invasion in its history, yet every victory felt like a defeat. Generals began asking uncomfortable questions. Where had the humans gone? Why had they abandoned entire planets without a fight? And most importantly, what were they waiting for? Saraveth already knew the answer. Humans never gave away territory unless they gained something more valuable. Somewhere beyond the front lines. They were preparing. Exactly 12 days after the invasion began, humanity finally. The leaders couldn't admit they were wrong, so they would continue sacrificing lives. She understood something painful. The greatest danger wasn't human weapons. It wasn't human fleets. It wasn't human industry. It was the inability of proud leaders to admit failure. History repeated itself across every civilization. Arrogance destroyed more empires than enemy armies ever could. 4 hours. Sareveth sat alone inside her small advisory office. She looked at old battlefield photographs. One image showed her standing beside a human admiral 15 years earlier. Admiral Marcus Harlow. They had once fought together against the Grath Collective. During those difficult years, they had earned each other's respect. Before leaving that campaign, they had secretly exchanged an emergency communication frequency. Promise. If the day ever comes when politics become more dangerous than enemies, use this. She had never imagined she would actually need it. Her hand hovered above the communication console. If she contacted Harlow, everything would change. She would become a traitor. Her career would end. She would never return home. But if she stayed silent, billions might die. She stared at the blinking screen for several minutes. Then, she activated the old frequency. A coded transmission disappeared into deep space. 41 minutes later, a reply arrived. Only one sentence appeared. I received your message.
I'm listening.
Sareveth leaned back. The hardest decision of her life had just begun. The meeting happened 3 days later. Not on a warship. Not inside a military station. Instead, both sides chose a tiny courier vessel drifting through neutral space. Every compartment had been inspected. Every communication system had been disconnected. No hidden weapons.
No surveillance devices.
Only 2 old soldiers meeting once again. Sareveth entered first. A few moments later, Admiral Marcus Harlow stepped inside. Time had changed him. His hair had turned gray. Small lines surrounded his eyes. But the calm confidence she remembered was still there. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Harlow broke the silence. You look like someone who was right about everything. Sareveth gave a tired smile. I wish I hadn't been. The admiral slowly sat down. I lost 23 capital ships. More than 14,000 sailors. So forgive me if I'm not feeling generous today. I understand, she answered quietly. I watched every minute of that battle. I know exactly what it cost. Harlow looked directly into her eyes. So tell me, why am I here? Sareveth didn't waste time. The war is already lost. But if it continues, my people will pay the price. She activated a holographic display. Fleet positions appeared between them. Supply routes, hidden reserves, reinforcement schedules, everything. This is our actual military strength. Not the numbers your intelligence currently has. Harlow remained completely silent. She continued, Our reinforcements will need 11 weeks. Our logistics are collapsing. Our industry cannot match yours. She looked down for a moment. You will win. I know that. But when this war ends, I need the Stan people to survive. She raised her eyes again. 12 billion civilians had nothing to do with this invasion. Punish the leaders, not the innocent. Harlow studied her face for a long time. You understand what you're asking? Yes. You know we could erase your empire.
Ido.
And you're asking us not to. She nodded. Because rebuilding peace is harder than winning wars. For the first time, a small smile appeared on the admiral's face. You've been studying humanity very carefully. I've been trying. Without another word. Sareveth transferred everything she knew. Fleet deployments, command frequencies, operational habits, even details she was never supposed to possess. Every file represented an act of treason. Every file also saved lives. Before Harlow could answer, his assistant suddenly stepped forward. The color drained from his face. He whispered something into the admiral's ear. Harlow became perfectly still. Then he slowly looked back at Sareveth. His voice remained calm, almost too calm. 3 human worlds. Biological attack confirmed. 19 million civilians are under emergency quarantine. Saraveth felt her heart stop. No, she whispered. She already knew exactly who had ordered it.
Supreme Warlord vor.
She had predicted this possibility months earlier. One of her ignored reports had contained an entire chapter titled, "Cornered Leaders Become More Dangerous Than Winning Ones." No one had listened. Now, millions of innocent people were paying the price. Harlow stood. The meeting was over. Not because they had finished talking, but because history had just changed forever. As Saraveth turned to leave, the admiral called her name. "General." She stopped. "Leave wherever your command system says you are. They'll know someone warned us." She understood immediately. By helping humanity, she had signed her own death warrant. Back aboard her ship, Saraveth opened one final encrypted file. She added 4 short sentences. The likely location of Vor's command ship. His communication rotation schedule. Emergency fleet authorization codes. And finally, one simple message. "This is my testimony. I warned them. The record exists." She pressed send. Then, without hesitation, she contacted the nearest military police unit. "My name is General Saraveth. I have committed treason. I am surrendering peacefully." She waited quietly. No resistance.
No escape.
She accepted whatever punishment came next. Meanwhile, human intelligence released proof of the biological attack across the entire galaxy. Neutral governments received every document, every laboratory report, every casualty estimate, every command authorization. The reaction was immediate. Species that had remained neutral suddenly joined humanity. Within 3 days, the Terran Alliance expanded from a few trusted partners to more than 500 worlds. Ironically, Supreme Warlord Vor had always claimed numbers decided wars. Now, the numbers had turned against him. Inside the Stan Empire, citizens finally learned the truth. They discovered the frontier victories had been meaningless. The captured planets were empty. Entire fleets had been destroyed. Human industry had surpassed theirs months ago. Worst of all, their own government had used biological weapons. Public support collapsed almost overnight. Military leaders began questioning every order. Government officials abandoned old alliances. The empire started breaking apart from within. Exactly as Saraveth had predicted. 17 days after the biological attack, 3 senior admirals surrounded Vor's flagship. Instead of another battle, there was a military coup. The Supreme Warlord was arrested by his own officers. The war effectively ended that day. The remaining fighting lasted only a few weeks. Both sides already understood the outcome. Peace negotiations began. Then came the tribunal. For 2 full days, Saraveth stood before judges representing dozens of civilizations. One by one, she read every report into the official record. 41 warnings. Every ignored recommendation. Every prediction. Every piece of evidence. The chief prosecutor eventually asked one question. "If you knew nobody was listening, why did you keep writing reports?" Saraveth answered without hesitation. "Because history deserves the truth. The record had to exist, so nobody could claim they didn't know." The courtroom became silent. Months later, the judges reached their decisions. Supreme Warlord Vor was convicted for war crimes. The officers responsible for the invasion faced justice. Saraveth walked free. The new government reached an unexpected conclusion. She hadn't betrayed her people. She had saved them. After her release, she found herself alone inside a quiet transport station. No military rank. No command. No future plans. Then, a message appeared. It was from Admiral Harlow. "I finished reading all 41 reports. You were right." He paused before continuing. "There is one thing you underestimated." Saraveth looked closer. "We responded about 40% faster than your calculations predicted." She actually laughed. After everything, she had finally made one mistake. Then another sentence appeared. "We have an opening. Terran strategic defense." We could use someone who understands both